Tashmad Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Tashmad Shila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Tashmad Shila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Tashmad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Tashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Mahabhagavat Shila Gokshara Swabaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitya Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shiva Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachay Shila Hairas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vrajamandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishya Pradati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagat Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Dandavat Pranam Sarup Manjari Didi. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Sorry Narayaniti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano virahakatara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedus tang sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Narayanam namaskrityam narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashtakama Ditarangamadhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat pranams Indira Mataji and Lalita Apriya Didi. from the banks of the Yamuna. Wow, that's so awesome. And then the Haribol Raseshwari Mataji and Prajumna Prabhu. All right, what verses did we read from yesterday? It was from 29 to 44. Okay. So, Narad goes to Prachinabadhishat and asks, what will you gain by performing all this karma, these fire sacrifices, fruit of fire sacrifices? Prachinabadhishat, and then Prachinabadhishat, he requests Narad for pure knowledge, admitting the misfortune of Griha Medis. Then Narad shows the sacrificed animals in the sky. Because when you do a fire yajna, when you do an animal sacrifice, and it's not done completely perfectly, then that animal will not get a human form of human birth in his next life, and you'll have to suffer the consequences. So, then, oh God, I spaced out. Then Purañjana. Okay, so then Narad narrates the story of Purañjana. First, Purañjana, who represents the... let's just read it from here. I'm not going to read everything, but... Oh yeah, and today's a short reading because, yeah, there's not that much left in the chapter. So then, in this connection, Narad says, I will narrate an old history of a king called Purañjana, who enjoys in a body. Please understand it as I speak. Purañjana's activities were celebrated. He had a friend named Avigyata, the supersoul, whose actions were unknown. Purañjana traveled all over the world to find a suitable place to live for fulfilling his desires for sense gratification, but he could not find a place of his liking. Therefore, he became morose and disappointed. Once while wandering, he saw on the southern side of the Himalayas, in Bharatvarsh, a city with 9 gates, with all auspicious facilities. Description of the city of the 9 gates, the material body. And so then we recapped yesterday the aspects of the city: the walls, parks, towers, trenches, windows, gates, houses, capital estate, floors made of sapphire, crystal, diamonds, pearls, assembly house, street crossings, flags and festoons, streets, gambling houses, market, resting places. All these are compared to the skin, hair, nose, head, wrinkles and depressions, eyes, eyelids, all these different things, the heart. Yeah. And then there's also the beautiful trees and creepers encircling a nice lake. Those are favorable conditions surrounding the sex impulse. The wind, waterfall, spring air, which is touch, different types of tastes and smell. And then the non-violent animals, yeah, so all these different things. Then Purañjana sees a beautiful woman, Purañjani. By the way, Purañjana is representing Prachinabadhishat. It's representing the living entity, but Narad speaking to Prachinabadhishat, using, yeah. So then Purañjana sees a beautiful woman, Purañjani, and then we read the aspects of Purañjani. She represents intelligence functioning with ignorance. She arrived on her own. Anyways, I'm not going to recap all of this because we already recapped it yesterday. Her beautifully decorated face, her beautiful nose, teeth, forehead, ears with dazzling earrings. And so I'm going to read from here. Purañjana got attracted by her eyebrows and smiling face and was pierced by the arrows of her lusty desires. Although a hero, he could not refrain from addressing her. Purañjana inquires from Purañjani, My dear lotus-eyed one, who are you? Where are you coming from? Whose daughter are you? What is the purpose of your coming here? Who are your 11 strong bodyguards? Who are the women following them? Who is the snake that is preceding you? In human life, one should put questions to himself and to his intelligence like this.
Are you Bhavani or Saraswati or Lakshmi? You are alone in this forest like a sage. Are you looking for your husband? I think you must be Lakshmi, but I do not see the lotus flower in your hand. Where did you throw it? You are none of those women, as your feet are touching the ground. You must not be any of those women because your feet are touching the ground. You can beautify the city along with me, a great hero and powerful king on this planet, just as Lakshmi, accompanied by Lord Vishnu, decorates Vaikuntha. Your glances and shy smiles are agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, please be merciful upon me. Note, the jiva's impressions of sense objects, produced especially by intelligence, attack him. He asks for enjoyment of sense objects, such as sound and touch. Kindly show your face with nice eyebrows and eyes, and with your bluish hair scattered about. You speak sweet words, but you do not show me your face out of shyness. Note, Purañjana is attracted by avidya. He now wishes to see the complete features of avidya, her face. The face with beautiful features indicates form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. He prays to enjoy them. Puranjani also got attracted to Purañjana, who was pleading to her in this way. Thus she smilingly spoke to him. She said, I do not know my name, who has begotten me, my family, or the names and origin of those accompanying me. I only know that I am existing in this place today and nothing else. I do not know who has created this residence. Note, the living entity in this material world is ignorant and doesn't know his origin, the purpose, and the source of material creation, and ultimately the Lord. All these men, senses and mind, and women, desires, are my friends, and the snake, vital force, who always remains awake, protects this city, the body, even during my sleeping hours. By great fortune, you have come here. You have attained a human body. You desire to satisfy your senses, and all my friends and I shall try our best to fulfill your desires. You may live here in this city of 9 gates for 100 years, and I will arrange everything for your sense gratification. How can I expect to unite with others? Others are neither conversant about sex, nor capable of knowing how to enjoy life while living after death. They are unable to think of the future like animals. In household life there is dharma, artha, and kama, the bliss of children, remnants of sacrifices, and attainment of heaven. All this happiness is practically unknown to the transcendentalists. I'm now recommending only dharma, artha, and kama, and not moksha is intelligence. Sorry, is ignorance. Why did I say intelligence? Okay. According to authorities, household life is pleasing not only to oneself, but to the forefathers, demigods, great sages, and all humans. Who will not accept a husband like you, famous, generous, handsome, and affectionate, with snake-like arms? You relieve the distress of unsheltered women like me by your smiling glance. Thus the two of them, through mutual understanding, entered that city and enjoyed life for 100 years. Praised by singers and surrounded by women, Purañjana used to enjoy in the river during the hot summer. Note, the 3 states of Purañjana. Garti, that means wakefulness, so his enjoyment for 100 years in his wakeful state. Swapna, that means sleep. That means dreams, right? Playing with women in his dream state, because the senses do not function at this time, actions continue by their impressions, the women. And sushupti, he entered the river, the space in the heart, where the jiva resides during deep sleep. Jagarti means wakefulness, swapna means dreaming, and sushupti means deep sleep. Alright, so now we're going to read the 9 gates of the city and other inhabitants. The 7 gates on the surface, the 2 subterranean gates, all the inhabitants of the city, Purañjana captivated by his wife, and then it's over. So let me open this up. Okay, 44. Wait, we read 44 yesterday, so we're reading 45 to 62. Okay. And don't worry that I started late today because today's a short reading. Let's just read. Many professional singers used to sing about the glories of King Purañjana and his glorious activities. When it was too hot in the summer, he used to enter a reservoir of water. He would surround himself with many women to enjoy their company. Sapto parikrita dvara purastasya tudve adha pritag vishaya gatartam tasyamya kashaneshvara. Of the 9 gates in that city, 7 were on the surface and 2 were subterranean. A total of 9 doors were constructed, and these led to different places. All the gates were used by the city's governor. Purport. The 7 gates of the body that are purport by Srila Prabhupada. The 7 gates of the body that are situated upward are the 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. The 2 subterranean gates are the rectum and the genitals. The king, or the ruler of the body, who is the living entity, uses all these doors to enjoy different types of material pleasures. The system of opening different gates to different places is still evident in old Indian cities. Formerly, a capital was surrounded by walls, and one passed through various gates to go to various cities or towards specific directions. In Old Delhi, there are still remnants of surrounding walls and various gates known as the Kashmiri Gate, the Lohari Gate, etc. Similarly, in Ahmedabad, there is a Delhi Gate. The point of this simile is that the living entity wants to enjoy different types of material opulences, and to this end, nature has given him various holes in his body that he can utilize for sense enjoyment. One second, I just need to make a note for myself. Okay. Sorry. Panchadvarastu paurastya dakshinaika tatottara paschime dve amushante namani nripavarnaye. My dear king, of the 9 doors, 5 led toward the eastern side, 1 led toward the northern side, 1 led toward the southern side, and 2 led toward the western side. I shall try to give the names of these different doors. Purport. Of the 7 doors on the surface, namely the 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and 1 mouth, 5 look forward, and these are described as the doors facing the eastern side. Since looking forward means seeing the sun, these are described as the eastern gates, for the sun rises in the east. The gate on the northern side and the gates on the southern side represents the 2 ears, and the 2 gates facing the western side represents the rectum and the genitals. All the doors and gates are described below. Kadyotavirmukhi chapritag dvaravekatra nirmite vibhrajitam janapadam yatitabhyam dyumat saka. The 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi were situated facing the eastern side, but they were constructed in one place. Through those 2 gates, the king used to go to the city of Vibhrajita, accompanied by a friend whose name was Dyuman. Purport. The 2 names Kadyota and Avirmukhi mean glowworm and torchlight. This indicates that of the 2 eyes, the left eye is less powerful in its ability to see. Although both eyes are constructed in one place, one is stronger than the other in the power to see. The king, or the living entity, uses these 2 gates to see things properly, but he cannot see unless accompanied by a friend whose name is Dyuman. This friend is the sun. Although the two eyes are situated in one place, they have no power to see without the sunlight. Vibrajitam janapadam. If one wants to see something very clearly, vibrajitam, he must see it with two eyes and with the assistance of his friend, the sunlight. Within this body, everyone is a king because he uses different gates according to his own will. Although he is very much proud of his power to see or hear, he is nonetheless dependent on the assistance of nature. Nalini nalini chaprag dvarave katra nirmite avadhuta sakastabhyam vishayam yati saurabham. Similarly, in the east there were two seats of gates named Nalini and Nalini. Nalini and Nalini. And these were also constructed in one place. Through these gates, the king, accompanied by a friend named Avadut, used to go to the city of Saurav. Saurav means fragrance, doesn't it? Purport. The two gates named Nalini and Nalini are the two nostrils. The living entity enjoys these two gates with the help of different avaduts, or airs, which constitute the breathing process. Through these gates, the living entity goes to the town of Saurav, or aroma. In other words, the nostrils, with the help of their friends, the air, enjoy various aromas in the material world. Nalini and Nalini are the pipes of the nostrils, through which one inhales and exhales, enjoying the aroma of sense pleasure. Mukyanama purastadvas tayapana bahudano vishayo yatipurarad rasagya vipananvita. The fifth gate, situated on the eastern side, was named Mukhya, or the chief. Through this gate, accompanied by his friends named Rasagya and Vipana, he used to visit places named Bahudan and Apan. Doesn't Bahudan mean exhale and Apan mean inhale? I don't know. Purport. The mouth is here described as the chief or the most important gate. The mouth is a very important entrance because one has two functions to conduct with the mouth. One function is eating, and the other is speaking. Our eating is done with the friend rasagya, the tongue, which can taste many different types of foods. The tongue is also used for speaking, and it can speak of either material sense enjoyment or Vedic knowledge. Of course, here material sense enjoyment is stressed, therefore the word rasagya is used. Okay, maybe Bahudan and Apan doesn't mean inhale and exhale, I don't know. Pitrihur nripapuryadvar dikshanena Purañjana rashtam dakshina panchalam yati shrutta dharanvita. The southern gate of the city was known as Pitrihu, and through that gate, King Purañjana used to visit the city named Dakshina Panchala, accompanied by his friend Shrutadhar. The right ear is used for karma kandiya, or fruitive activities. As long as one is attached to the enjoyment of material resources, he hears from the right ear and uses the five senses to elevate himself to the higher planetary systems like Pitriloka. Consequently, the right ear is here described as the Pitrihu gate. Devahur namapuryadva uttarena Purañjana rashtam uttara panchalam yati shrutta dharanvita. On the northern side was the gate named Devahu. To that gate, King Purañjana used to go with his friend Shrutadhar to the place known as Uttara Panchala. Purport. The two ears are situated on the northern side and the southern side. The ear on the southern side is very strong and is always anxious to hear about sense enjoyment. The ear on the northern side, however, is used for taking initiation from the spiritual master and for gaining promotion to the spiritual sky. The right ear, or the ear on the southern side, is called Pitrihu, which indicates that it is used for attaining the higher planetary systems known as Pitriloka. But the left ear, which is known as Devahu, is utilized for hearing about the higher planetary systems, such as Maharlok, Tapolok, and Brahmalok, or yet even higher planets, situated in the spiritual universe, where one becomes more inclined to be permanently situated. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.25. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pitri vrata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti marya jinopimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors, and those who worship me will live with me. One who is interested in being happy on this planet, as well as after death, generally wants to be elevated to the Pitri Lokas. Such a person can use the right ear for hearing Vedic instructions. However, one who is interested in going to Tapaloka, Brahmaloka, the Vaikuntha planets, or Krishna Loka may take initiation from the spiritual master in order to be elevated to such lokas. Asuri nama paschadvas tayayati Purañjana gramakam nama vishayam durmadena samanvita. On the western side was a gate named Asuri. Through that gate, King Purañjana used to go to the city of Gramaka, accompanied by his friend Durmada. Purport: the gate on the western side of the city is known as Asuri because it was especially meant for the Asuras. The word Asura refers to those who are interested in sense gratification, specifically in sex life, to which they are overly attracted. Thus Purañjana, the living entity, enjoys himself to his greatest satisfaction by means of the genitals. Consequently, he used to go to the place known as Gramaka. Material sense gratification is also called Gramya, and the place where sex life is indulged to a great extent is called Gramaka. When going to Gramaka, Purañjana used to be accompanied by his friend Durmada. The word Vishaya refers to the four bodily necessities of life: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The word Durmadena may be analyzed in this way. Dur means dushta, or sinful, and mada, madness. Every living entity who is in contact with material nature is called mada, or mad. It is said, Pishachi pailena mati chana hoy, maya grasta jiver hoy, she bhava udoy. When a person is haunted, he becomes practically insane. When one is in an insane condition, he speaks all kinds of nonsense. Thus, to become engaged in sense gratification, one has to accept a friend who is durmada, or badly affected by the material disease. The words Asuri Nama Pashtadva are significant in another sense. The sunrise is first visible from the eastern side, the Bay of Bengal, and gradually it progresses toward the west. It is practically experienced that people in the West are more addicted to sense gratification. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has certified, Paschimera Lokasab Mura Anachar, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 1089. The more one goes to the western side, the more he will find people disinterested in spiritual life. He will find them behaving against the Vedic standards. Because of this, people living in the West are more addicted to sense gratification. In this Bhagavatam, it is confirmed, Asuri Nama Pashtadva. In other words, the population on the western side is interested in Asuric civilization, that is, a materialistic way of life. Lord Chaitanya consequently wanted this Krishna consciousness movement to be preached on the western side of the world, so that people addicted to sense gratification might be benefited by his teachings. Niritir nama pashtadvas tayayati Purañjana vaishasam nama vishayam lubdhakena samanvita. Another gate on the western side was known as Niriti. Purañjana used to go through this gate to the place known as Vaishasa, accompanied by his friend Lubdhaka. Purport: this is a reference to the rectum. The rectum is supposed to be situated on the western side of the eyes, nose, and ears. This gate is especially meant for death. When an ordinary living entity abandons his present body, he passes through the rectum. It is therefore painful. When one is called by nature to evacuate, one also experiences pain. The friend of the living entity who accompanies him through this gate is named lubdhaka, which means greed. Due to our greed, we eat unnecessarily, and such gluttony causes pain at the time of evacuation. This gluttony causes pain at the time of evacuation. The conclusion is that the living entity feels well if he evacuates properly. This gate is known as niriti, or the painful gate. Sorry. Okay. Andav amishampo puranam nirvak peshas krita ubho akshan vatam adipatis tabhyam yati koroti cha. Of the many inhabitants of the city, there are two persons named Nirvak and Peshaskrit. Although King Purañjana was the ruler of the citizens who possessed eyes, he unfortunately used to associate with these blind men. Accompanied by them, he used to go here and there and perform various activities. Purport. This is a reference to the arms and legs of the living entity. The two legs do not speak, and they are blind. If a person simply trusts his legs to take him walking, he is likely to fall in a hole or bump into something. Thus led by the blind's legs, one's life may be placed in jeopardy. Of the hands that are working, the hands and legs are very important, but they have no eyes to see. This means that in the hands and legs there are no holes. In the head, there are many holes: 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. But lower down in the arms and legs, there are no holes. Consequently, the arms and legs have been described as andha, blind. Although the living entity has many holes in his body, he nonetheless has to work with his hands and arms. Although the living entity is the master of many other senses, when he has to go somewhere, do something, or touch something, he has to use his blind legs and hands. Sahyarhyanta puragato vishuchina samanvita moham prasadam harsham va yati jayat majod bhavam. Sometimes he used to go to his private home with one of his chief servants, the mind, who was named Vishuchina. At that time, illusion, satisfaction, and happiness used to be produced from his wife and children. Purport. According to the Vedic conclusion, one's self is situated within the heart. As stated in Vedic language, Hridayam Atmanishtita. The self is situated within the heart. In the material condition, however, the spirit soul is covered by the material qualities, namely goodness, passion, and darkness. And within the heart, these 3 qualities react. For instance, when one is in goodness, he feels happiness. When one is in passion, he feels satisfaction through material enjoyment. And when one is in darkness, he feels bewilderment. All these activities are of the mind, and they function on the platform of thinking, feeling, and willing. When the living entity is encircled by wife, children, and home, he acts on the mental plane. Sometimes he is very happy, sometimes he is very much satisfied, sometimes he is not satisfied, and sometimes he is bewildered. Bewilderment is called moha, illusion. Illusions by society, friendship, and love. The living entity thinks that his so-called society, friendship, and love, nationality, community, etc. will give him protection. He does not know that after death, he'll be thrown into the hands of a very strong material nature that will force him to accept a certain type of body according to his present work. This body may not even be a human body. Thus, the living entity's feeling of security in this life in the midst of society, wife, and friendship is nothing but illusion. All living entities engaged in various material bodies are illusions by the present activities of material enjoyment. They forget their real business, which is to go back home, back to Godhead. Everyone who is not in Krishna consciousness must be considered to be an illusion. One's so-called feelings of happiness and satisfaction resulting from material things are also illusions. Factually, neither society, friendship, love, nor anything else can save one from the onslaught of the external energy, which is symptomized by birth and death, old age, and disease. To get even one living entity out of the illusory condition is very difficult. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya durattaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etantarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Therefore, unless one surrenders completely at the lotus feet of Krishna, he cannot get out of the entanglement of the three modes of material nature. Evam karma susangsakta kamatma vanchito buddha mahishi adyadi heta tattad evan navartata. Being thus entangled in different types of mental concoction and engaged in fruitive activities, King Purañjana came completely under the control of material intelligence and was thus cheated. Indeed, he used to fulfill all the desires of his wife, the queen. Purport. When a living entity is in such bewilderment that he is under the control of his wife or material intelligence, he has to satisfy the intelligence of his so-called wife and act exactly according to her dictates. Various shastras advise that for material convenience, one should keep his wife always satisfied by giving her ornaments and by following her instructions. In this way, there will be no trouble in family life. Therefore, for one's own social benefit, one is advised to keep his wife satisfied. In this way, when one becomes the servant of his wife, he must act according to the desires of his wife. Thus one becomes more and more entangled. In Bengal, it is said that if one becomes an obedient servant of his wife, he loses all reputation. However, the difficulty is that unless one becomes a most obedient servant of his wife, family life becomes disturbed. In the Western countries, this disturbance gives rise to the divorce law, and in Eastern countries like India, there is separation. Now this disturbance is confirmed by the new introduction of the divorce law in India. Within the heart, the mind is acting, thinking, feeling, and willing, and falling under the control of one's wife is the same as falling under the control of material intelligence. Thus one begets children by his wife and becomes entangled in so many activities under the control of mental concoctions. Let me see if there's any lines missing in this. 57, 58, 59, 60. Yes, there are lines missing. Okay. Let's go to database. Canto Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Canto 4. Chapter 25. What verse? 50, whatever. 57, I think. Okay. Kvachit pibantyam pibate madira madavivala ashnantyam kvachit ashnati jaksha satyam saha jakshiti kvachit gayati gayantyam rudatyam rudati kvachit dhasantyam hasati jalpantyam anujalpati kvachit dhavati dhavantyam tishtantyam anutishtati anushete shayanayam anvaste kvachidasatim. Kvachitrinoti shinvatyam pashyantyam anupashyati. Kvachidjigrati jigrantyam sprishantyam sprishati kvachit. Kvachit chashochatim jayam anushochati dhinavat anuhrishyati hrisyantyam muditam anumodate. When the queen drank liquor, King Purañjana also engaged in drinking. When the queen dined, he also dined with her. He also used to dine with her. And when she chewed, King Purañjana used to chew along with her. When the queen sang, he also sang. Similarly, when the queen cried, he also cried. And when the queen laughed, he also laughed. When the queen talked loosely, he also talked loosely. And when the queen walked, the king walked behind her. When the queen would stand still, the king would also stand still. And when the queen would lie down in the bed, he would also follow and lie down with her. When the queen sat, he would also sit. And when the queen heard something, he would follow her to hear the same thing. When the queen saw something, the king would also look at it. And when the queen smelled something, the king would follow her to smell the same thing. When the queen touched something, the king would also touch it. And when the dear queen was lamenting, the poor king also had to follow her in lamentation. In the same way, when the queen felt enjoyment, he also enjoyed, and when the queen was satisfied, the king also felt satisfaction. Purport. The mind is the place where the self is situated, and the mind is conducted by the intelligence. The living entity situated within the heart follows the intelligence. The intelligence is herein depicted as the queen, and the soul, under mental control, follows the material intelligence just as the king follows his wife. The conclusion is that material intelligence is the cause of bondage for the living entity. The point is that one has to take to spiritual intelligence to come out of this entanglement. In the life of Maharaj Ambarish, we find that the great Maharaj first engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. In this way, his intelligence became purified. Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. Maharaj Ambarish also used his other senses in the service of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity in the temple, nicely decorated with flowers. He engaged his sense of smell by smelling the flowers, and he engaged his legs by walking to the temple. His hands were engaged in cleansing the temple, and his ears were engaged in hearing about Krishna. His tongue was engaged in two ways, in speaking about Krishna and in tasting prasad offered to eating the prasad offered to the deity. Materialistic persons who are under the full control of material intelligence cannot perform all these activities. Thus, consciously or unconsciously, they become entangled by the dictations of material intelligence. This fact is summarized in the following verse. Vipralabdo mahishyavam sarva prakriti vanchita nechananu korotyagya klabhyat krida mrigoyata. In this way, King Purañjana was captivated by his nice wife and was thus cheated. Indeed, he became cheated in his whole existence in the material world. Even against that poor, foolish king's desire, he remained under the control of his wife, just like a pet animal that dances according to the order of its master. The word vipralabdha is very significant in this verse. Vi means specifically, and pralabdha means obtained. Just to satisfy his desires, the king got the queen, and thus he became cheated by material existence. Although he was not willing to do so, he remained a pet animal under the control of material intelligence, just as a pet monkey dances according to the desires of its master. Similarly, the king danced according to the desires of the queen. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5.5.2, it is said, Mahat sevam dwaram iho vimuktes. If one associates with a saintly person, a devotee, one's path of liberation becomes clear. But if one associates with a woman or a person who is too much addicted to a woman, his path of bondage becomes completely clear. On the whole, for spiritual advancement, one must give up the company of women. This is what is meant by the order of sannyas, the renounced order. Before taking sannyas, or completely renouncing the material world, one has to practice avoiding illicit sex. Sex life, licit or illicit, is practically the same. But through illicit sex, one becomes more and more captivated. By regulating one's sex life, there's a chance that one may eventually be able to renounce sex or renounce the association of women. If this can be done, advancement in spiritual life comes very easily. How one becomes captivated by the association of one's dear wife is explained in this chapter by Narad Muni. Attraction for one's wife means attraction for the material qualities. One who is attracted by the material quality of darkness is in the lowest stage of life, whereas one who is attracted by the material quality of goodness is in a better position. Sometimes we see that when a person is on the platform of material goodness, he's attracted more or less by the cultivation of knowledge. This is, of course, a better position, for knowledge gives one the preference to accept devotional service. Unless one comes to the platform of knowledge, the Brahmabhuta stage, one cannot advance in devotional service. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18:54, Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mar bhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. The platform of knowledge is advantageous because it is a means by which one may come to the stage of devotional service. However, if one takes to devotional service directly, knowledge is revealed without separate endeavor. This is confirmed in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.2.7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Shuvairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahaitukam. Devotional service automatically reveals actual knowledge of our material existence. One who is sufficiently intelligent immediately attains the stage of renunciation of so-called society, family, and love, as well as other things. As long as we are attached to society, family, and love of the material world, there is no question of knowledge, nor is there a question of devotional service. By directly taking to devotional service, however, one becomes filled with knowledge and renunciation. In this way, one's life becomes successful. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, 25th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Descriptions of the Characteristics of King Purañjana. So tomorrow we will read, King Purañjana goes to the forest to hunt, and his queen becomes angry. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shala Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Shrada Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shikshetra Mandala, Gaura Mandala, Braja Mandala, Mathura Vrindavan, Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai, so beautiful, all representation. Yes, it does. I like to Dandavat Pranams. Madhavi Didi, Rup Manjari Didi, Prajumna Prabhu, Raseshwari Mataji, Indira Mataji, Lalita Priya Didi, everybody else that's there, Dandavat Pranams. Hari Bol.